Good evening, and welcome to another Walking by Faith Missions Church's Wednesday Bible studies. We're all the way up to chapter 18 now, and it appears from reading it earlier that God's just not finished yet after all the things that He's brought down in judgment on the people on the earth. But I'm beginning to understand it now, and I pray that this opens your eyes and grants you the understanding that you may need and help you draw a little bit closer and nearer to God our Father. Chapter 18. After all this is John the Apostle writing this down for us. After all this, I saw another angel come down from heaven with great authority, and the earth grew bright with his splendor. He gave a mighty shout. Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. She has become a den of demons, a haunt of devils, and every kind of evil spirit. For all the nations have drunk the fatal wine of her intense immorality. The rulers of the earth have enjoyed themselves with her, and businessmen throughout the world have grown rich from all her luxurious living. Then I heard another voice calling from heaven, "Come away from her, my people. Do not take part in her sins, or you will be punished with her. For her sins are piled as high as heaven, and God is ready to judge her for her crimes. Do to her as she has done to you, and more. Give double penalty for all her evil deeds. She brewed many a cup of woe for others. Give twice as much to her. She has lived in luxury and pleasure. Match it now with torments and with sorrows. She boasts, I am queen upon my throne. I am not a helpless widow. I will not experience sorrow. Therefore, the sorrows of death and mourning and famine shall overtake her in a single day, and she shall be utterly consumed by fire. For mighty is the Lord who judges her. And the world leaders took part in her immoral acts and enjoyed her favors. They will mourn for her as they see the smoke rising from her charred remains. They will stand afar off, trembling with fear, crying out, Alas, Babylon, that mighty city, in one moment her judgment fell. The merchants of the earth will also weep and mourn for her, for there is no one left to buy their goods. She was the biggest customer and consumer for gold and silver, precious stones, pearls, finest linens, purple, silk, scarlet, and every kind of perfumed wood, with ivory goods and most expensive wood carvings, and brass, and iron, and marble, along with spices, and perfumes, and incense, and ointment, and frankincense, and wine, olive oil, and fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and slaves, and even the souls of men. All the fancy things you loved so much are gone, they cry. The dainty luxuries and splendor that you prized so much will never be yours again. They are gone forever. And so the merchants who have become wealthy by selling her these things shall stand at a distance, fearing danger to themselves, and they will be weeping and crying. Alas, that great city, so beautiful, like a woman clothed in finest purple and scarlet linens, decked out with gold and precious stones and pearls, in one moment, all the wealth of the city is gone. And all the ship owners and captains of the merchant ships and crews will stand a long way off also, crying as they watch the smoke ascend, saying, Where in all the world is there another city such as this? They will throw dust on their heads in sorrow and say, Alas, alas, for that great city. She made us all rich from her great wealth, and now, in a single hour, all is gone. But you, O heaven, rejoice over her fate, and you, O children of God, and the prophets and the apostles, for at last God has given judgment against her for you. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder shaped like a millstone and threw it into the ocean and shouted, Babylon, that great city, shall be thrown away, as I have thrown away this stone, and she shall disappear forever. Never again will the sound of music be there. No more pianos, saxophones, and trumpets. No industry of any kind will ever again exist there, and there will be no more the milling of the grain. No more joyous wedding bells and happy voices of the bridegrooms and the brides. Her businessmen were known all around the world, and she deceived all nations with her sorceries, and she was held responsible for the blood of all the martyred prophets and all the saints. And here is where chapter 18 ends. So now that was from the New Living Bible, which explains it the best to those who are not into the these, thous, those, and thises. So let's go ahead and let's do the recap on chapter 18, because it opens with John stating that he sees another angel descending from heaven. And no doubt, this is probably one of the archangels, probably Gabriel, or possibly Michael or Uriel. We're not told. But for them to have such great splendor, God does have rank among the angels, for your knowledge. Pardon me. This angel declares that Babylon, the home country of the Antichrist, has fallen. And also, the angel describes the condition of those left alive. John says that the angel states that the entire place is filled with demons, devils, and many other demonic spirits. The remaining humans alive are described along with their actions in that they have utterly enjoyed themselves with pleasure, in addition to becoming filthy rich. John then says that another voice declares that everyone should leave Babylon or they will be held accountable, stating that these sins have reached heaven, and because of them, God's judgment is on the way for them if they remain. One would think that up to this point in history, people would have smartened up and repented after all that has occurred up to this point. However, I'd like you to make note of this one point that I'd like to make is that once we find that someone becomes indoctrinated, human beings have great difficulty in repenting and thinking differently, taking into account the lives that they are living, especially if things are going good. And you're going to see that indoctrination take place through what we now call today artificial intelligence. That is the tool that the Antichrist and Satan will use to indoctrinate people. And I'd like you to go back a couple of chapters and read 16 and 17 and see what God up to this point has already done to a lot of the inhabitants of the Antichrist's country and city. Okay. And yet, up to this point, no one has ever repented that's been recorded by John, and no one has ever stopped doing what it is they were doing. Verses 6, 7, and 8 describe the things that the whore kingdom has done, and this appears as the indictment of her in heaven above. Her inhabitants also are indicted, and their deeds by God's righteousness, which his justice will carry out. I want to share that point again with you if you ever missed it. in one of the sermons that I've done. Okay. You see, what God's righteousness demands, his justice carries out. And believe you me, there's nothing to stop the justice of an almighty and righteous God. Verses 9 and 10, John records the sorrow that has befallen those who trusted in Antichrist and the kingdom created God calls Babylon. Now, it's hard to know whether or not they were deceived or they just willingly participated. But in verses 9 and 10, John records their sorrow for us. Verses 11, 12, and 13 list the things that Antichrist and the kingdom are about to fall under God's judgment, furnished. And to be honest, reading them, it becomes understandable that anyone not knowing God or understanding his righteousness would definitely desire in life. I mean, who would not want a great life, a good life? Who would not want to, if you're a business person, who would not want to do business with someone and become filthy rich? I mean, it's just the way of our world. Verse 14 just plainly states that guess what? It's all gone. Verses 15, 16, and 17 state with finality that it's all gone. And it's interesting to note that the main subject of many of the preceding verses all state the same in describing that everything those who followed, gave allegiance to, and worshiped the Antichrist had come to possess. We find that many businesses and people could possibly have been indoctrinated or willfully participated into the Babylon system that's on its way right now, as we presently are in what Christ called in chapter 24 of Matthew birth pangs. And they're coming to the knowledge of the truth that guess what? It's all over. So if you keep up with current events today in today's times, not to worry about them, but just so that you'll know, okay, what it is that you're reading in Revelation that's gone, because the riches of this world, okay, are deeply desired by many. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure of the interactions you've had with the world or maybe people, but people can sometimes just get downright nasty when it comes to the possession of goods, wealth, and riches. Okay. It's not all, but some. Verse 18 states that the shipping industry, its owners, the crews of the ships, and merchants stand afar, weeping in sorrow, asking, where shall we find another like Babylon? So I guess you could say, if you want to put it in plain language, their meal ticket is gone. Verse 19 records their thoughts as they wonder just how, in 1 hour, all this could take place. Obviously, they know nothing of the one true and only God whose rule in the heavens and the earth is absolute. And for them, it's very possible that what they are seeing before their eyes right now is nothing when they are called to the judgment seat. You see, they even gave that a second thought. Verse 20 is added by John in that a declaration is made that the heavens and children of God, prophets and apostles, ought to rejoice, for God has truly judged the earth and all of mankind along with the fallen evil ones. Verse 21 states that John has recorded that another mighty angel picks up a huge stone and throws it into the ocean, declaring that Babylon is gone forever, just as the stone has disappeared into the deep. And I would leave that to your imagination, okay, as to what a huge stone might be that's thrown into the ocean. Verses 22 and 23 declare that the things that were occurring in the city of Antichrist and in finality will never, ever be seen, heard, or done, ever. And verse 24 closes the chapter declaring that never, never again will such things ever exist, and that also the events that took place, its participants, including those throughout history, will ever see, hear, nor participate in such things, because events such as these are being held accountable by Almighty God for the deaths of all the martyred prophets and all of the saints killed and murdered throughout the history of the continuum of time. Wow. In closing, I would like you to note verse 22, which describes musical instruments that God says will never be found in Babylon ever. That kind of makes me wonder just what will be the embedded into music in our future here. Okay. Will there be, song and dance when we finally get to the millennial kingdom and then into eternity to come? Because God made that statement in 22 that describes a lot of musical instruments that he says will never ever be found again. I mean, I know a lot of people are into their songs, their favorite musicians and singers, and their personal tastes when it comes to music. So I have to lean toward the lyrics will be captivating to those of Antichrist's kingdom. So if you're a music buff today, listen carefully to what is being said, listen carefully to what's being recorded in the Bible, and listen carefully to the music that's sung in today's modern world. Not that I'm saying music is bad. All I'm saying is, for your own benefit, discern the lyrics of what it is that you listen to. And that's only because I love you. Take care, and we'll see you for chapter 19 next week. For God's not finished yet and not ready to wrap up the continuum of time, as we shall see when continuing our Wednesday Bible studies into the book of Revelation. Thank you for being with us. Take care. God bless. And I pray that this enrich you.